Okay. It might be a little awkward in the beginning, but we're gonna try.
Okay, we'll get through it.
So, hi Elspeth, how are you?
I'm great. It's great to be with you, Javi. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Oh, no one usually asks how I'm doing, so it feels nice.
That's
Um, Thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it. I'm excited because we have book club, but like in a one-on-one basically, but in a different way.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So I usually start everyone with a breathing exercise.
Mm,
I forget what it's called, but we're gonna do an inhale for 4 and then an exhale for 8. So we're gonna do that 3 times, and I'll count for us, okay? So close your eyes. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. Exhale, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale as much as you can. Hold. Let go. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Inhale as much as you can. Hold. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How do you feel?
thank you. I feel great. I feel much more grounded now. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. We're gonna start with a little word association game
Mm,
as kind of just get the juices flowing. When I say a word, you're gonna say what you think, what comes to mind with one word.
okay.
So I'm gonna start. When I say calm, what do you say?
Peace,
When I say happy, what do you say?
growth,
When I say insanity, what do you say?
sad,
When I say government, what do you say?
bad,
When I say funny, what do you say?
laugh,
When I say spirituality, what do you say?
blessing,
When I say curiosity, what do you say?
thrilling.
I usually start with that because I feel like there's a lot of underlying emotions that I feel like I struggle with every day, where
Mhm.
I kind of am going throughout the day and maybe seeing things on Instagram or talking to somebody or just kind of interacting with my everyday. Um, Sometimes I feel like I don't have the access to the direct emotion that I'm having. So I thought it would be an interesting exercise just to see how somebody can like make the direct correlation between everyday, like government,
Mhm.
funny, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, so I just want to ask, are there any things that you feel like you're interacting with any every day that you feel like you can't have like the direct access to how you're really feeling or like being able to express yourself fully in?
Like things that I'm accessing every day that are kind of like stopping me from feeling. Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
whether it's like the blockades themselves or the actual feelings that you feel like are being blocked up.
Yeah. Um, I love this question, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot, especially because I'm in social work school right now. And I got to sleep in for the first time this morning in many days. Social work school is really demanding, and I've been thinking a lot about the way in which the school intentionally packs your schedule and really monopolizes your time, in order to kind of condition you to accept a career path that demands that you push your boundaries constantly, which is really sad to me, because many people who do care work, are constantly burnt out. And I think it's really like dismal to me that the school is kind of like preparing you for that as if it's kind of an inevitability of like the type of labor that we're doing. And I was thinking about this because I realized that because my schedule is so packed, I don't have the time that I wish I had to be able to really like somaticize and process and like metabolize a lot of the really difficult emotional content that I'm encountering every week, like at my internship, and just like that's like a necessary byproduct of like the work that I do with people. And that is really sad to me. And it had me thinking about the how important time to rest is in order to be able to envision like new futures or think creatively about like what could be possible. And especially like when I'm working with high school students in a school, that system is so crushing and oppressive, and like the school feels like a prison, and there are so many things that like every day I feel like we just like me and the students have to just accept in order to like get through the day or like survive the day. And that really saddens me. And it also saddens me how much energy it takes to push back against that and to resist and imagine like what else could be possible that doesn't just like consist of like acquiescing to these really like inhumane and like dehumanizing systems. And I think the thing that makes me sad or that like prevents me from getting to that place where I could like imagine alternatives or like where we like me and the students could imagine alternatives together is that everything is designed to be constantly exhausting, and there's just no, like so little space to dream and there's so little space to rest.
Yeah, as someone who's worked with kids, I hear you. Like
Yeah.
it's it's a lot. Can you try to describe like what exactly what you do is in this internship and kind of what are the main sources of friction that you're
Mhm.
having? Like
Yeah.
going through the day
Yeah.
and being like, this is something that stops me and kind of makes me have to like reflect or makes me not want to reflect.
Yeah, so I work as a social work intern at a transfer high school in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. And a transfer high school, I think maybe they have it in other cities, but it's kind of a New York specific model where it's a school that is like specifically for um students who are either undercredited or who are older than usual high school students or just need additional support towards graduation. They've like fallen behind for whatever reason. Often it has to do with trauma that they're experiencing at home. Often it has to do with like the conditions of like what it's like to live in poverty. Um, I would say like 99, I don't know. I would say 100% of the time, these are students that are dealing with complex trauma from having to live in systemic oppression and how that impacts their lives. So the work that I do is really in just like providing supportive connection for these students. And I do one-on-one counseling, I do some group counseling, but really the work that I try and do is about developing relationships with the students and um sort of being a supportive and encouraging presence. And I work really specifically on encouraging their creativity to flourish, encouraging their capacity to like imagine what a future would look like for themselves that actually consists of like a joyful life that they might want to live. Um, and yeah, and just providing like a sort of safer or like more reliable space where they can process a lot of like the really difficult things that they have to have gone through and have to contend with like every day just in order to like show up at school. Um, so that's the work. And then I think to answer your question about like what are sort of impediments to like the work or like imagining possibility. I think that the entire way that the school is structured is actually like designed to inhibit that kind of imagining. Even the lighting, the fluorescent lighting is so punishing and just grueling and brutal. I always have the lights off turned off in my classroom so that we can get natural light in and we don't have to have these like oppressive, like really draining fluorescents on all the time. The students have to go through scanning at the beginning of the day, which the teachers are not subject to. So there are about 5 to 8 cops in the lobby of the building. The students basically have to go through TSA. They have to take off their jackets and put everything they own through a metal detector. They're not allowed to have their phones in school, so they're immediately stripped of their agency and any kind of feeling of like that students can actually be responsible for their own attention span. And the school is like just really focused on like getting the students to show up and graduate without really meaningfully, I think, addressing the reasons why it's hard for students to show up. And often it's hard for students to show up because of like material issues, like they live an hour and a half away and school starts at like 7:30 in the morning. And also a lot of students are dealing with housing insecurity. A lot of students are dealing with food insecurity. A lot of students are like in abusive situations at home. A lot of students are dealing with anxiety and depression that just like makes it hard to show up. There are a lot of pressures outside of the school that I think the school like tries to address, but it doesn't end up like meaningfully doing so. Um, and I think, yeah, there's just the kind of this over focus on like, okay, yeah, like life is hard, but you kind of have to like push through and like and like graduate so that you can like get a job. And I think, you know, I want to equip the students to be able to, in a harm reduction sense, like, yes, navigate like the fucked up systems that we live in. But I also like want to teach them that like they're allowed to expect more than just survival. Like they're allowed to actually demand more of life than just like, oh, what job do I want to get? Or like, oh, I guess I want to graduate high school so that I can like, work at Old Navy or whatever. It's like, we were doing vision boards together and like they're also career focused. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like, let's talk about what career you want. But like the students were like, I don't know what to put. I don't know what I want to do after high school. And I was like, well, what kind of life do you want to live? Like what kinds of things do you want to fill your life with that bring you joy? And I was talking with a student who has an incredible poetry practice that she keeps private. I was like, have you ever shared your poetry with anyone else besides me? And she was like, no. And I was like, your poems are incredible. Like they like she's a lyricist. And I was like, why don't you put poetry on your vision board? And she was like, oh yeah, I could do that. And it's just like, yeah, I think it's stuff like that where it's just like also my schedule is like so demanding that like, I don't the students don't have a lunch break in the middle of the day because they were like basically a lot of kids were like having lunch and then like just leaving and going home, which like valid. I would probably do that too. And so they were like, well, I guess they don't deserve to have lunch in the middle of the day, so we'll have it last period. And so I then don't get like a break between cases. So I'm like seeing students constantly. So, students are disclosing like pretty intense stuff to me throughout the day. And I don't even like really have a chance to like metabolize like what one student said to me that was like really intense, like before going into a completely other session with another student. Also, like the bathroom situation is fucked up. There's like no mirror in the girls' bathroom. There's like a login sheet that you have to sign in, like when you like entered the bathroom and then like when you left the bathroom if you're a student. It's like all these like these like little things that are like I don't really think it's subtle. I think it's like overt, but it's like all these gestures are like just slowly stripping students of like humanity and agency at like every turn throughout the school day.
Hot damn.
Yeah,
What?
crazy. Yeah. And it's because like the school is like specifically for like there's this connotation with transfer schools that they're for like problem kids because basically they either got kicked out of their other school or something happened and they fell behind. And so there's all of this like stigma around the school and admin has really internalized that stigma in like how they discipline the students. So yeah, there's just all of these little gestures that basically tell the students like we don't trust you, we think you're gonna lie, and like we have to like make this environment super carceral in order to like get you to behave. It's really a huge bummer.
I mean, some of the things you named, like the thing that was kind of staying with me the whole time I was listening to you was the fluorescent lights because I'm like,
Yeah.
they make a noise. Like
Yes. Yes.
you can hear it throughout the day and little things like that. Like you don't understand how much something is like bothering you until like you're out of the situation almost.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was wearing these, my dad got me some headphones for Christmas, but they have like been irritating my ears, so I haven't been wearing them much. But like if I wear them a lot, like I'll get like a little bit of ringing in my ear. And
Hmm.
like I don't hear it throughout the day. I'll be like listening to things or like watching YouTube videos or watching TV or talking to my family. And then when I sit down and I hear the ringing, it's like, oh my God, I have just been living with this the whole day, but I haven't noticed.
Yeah,
And something like that, I don't, it's not exactly the same thing, but it feels like it's the same part of the body
it
where
is.
it's like being sourced from the same spot of like you don't understand how a full day of all these like sensory issues are happening until you lay down and you're like you can't fall asleep. That's why so many kids feel so attached to their phones because
Yes.
they're so scared of letting a thought come to mind. Because if you're thinking
Yes.
about how you have to log something or that you have to like, you know, have the whole day without eating, when it's time for you to eat, sometimes it feels like guilty or sometimes it feels
Yeah.
um like I've been hungry before after a school day, and I've had times like the way that my school was structured in high school was way different.
Hmm.
But even like having to like hold in your pee all day, or like this is not the same thing, but even having to hold in a fart all day,
Yeah.
like things
Yeah.
like that, it's
Yeah.
like the fact that you feel scared to do bodily
Yes.
things throughout the school day. And if I'm able to feel that type of hostility in my school when um I grew up in the suburbs and the school I went to was more affluent. So like I can imagine or I can imagine as someone who works in different schools now,
Hmm.
um, as a childcare worker. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, hearing all of that, I'm like, there are so many ways that kids feel like they're in jail. And
Yeah.
what you were saying about that. Like when I was working with kids in this district that I used to work or I used to go to school in, there was one girl, this white girl, and she like would always be like, school is like prison here. And she's in elementary school and she's like
Yeah.
literally describing what prison's like. She's like the bells, the food tray. And I'm like, the fact she has a grasp of maybe not like the
Yeah.
explicit imagery of prison, she has like she has the ability to make the connections, you know?
Yeah.
Like and it's insane that kids can name that and people don't understand that kids can name that. You
Right.
know?
Yeah. And they don't, I think people also deeply underestimate how sensitive kids are. And especially high schoolers. I mean, I don't know. I think kids of all ages are extraordinarily sensitive and adults diminish that constantly. And you're right. It takes an immense toll somatically when you feel like you are restricted in your ability to express or relax all day long. And even the like, it's like these things, I think we're just conditioned to accept that these are just like the way things are, and we just have to put up with it. And I think a big part of the way that I've really tried to show up in that space is actually saying, like, no, we don't have to do this. Like, we don't have to have the lights on. We don't have to, we can, like, I will bring snacks for you. Like, we don't have to wait till the end of the day to eat. Like, we don't have to sit across from each other at a desk in order to have our sessions. Like, there are bean bags and we can sit on them next to each other. Like, I found at the thrift store, like I think it was like $5 or something, which was an amazing score. But I found like a white noise machine that has all these like different settings of like rain and like ocean sounds and like a brook or whatever. And the students love it. And now they like ask me to turn it on like during their sessions. Or sometimes even like, you know, my sessions will consist of like talking with a student for 20 minutes. And then for the rest of the period, like I will let them lay down and sleep and they'll close their eyes. And they'll be like, "Can you turn the rain sounds on?" I'm like, "Yes, of course I can." Like it actually does not have to be like that. And especially for, students that are neurodivergent, like the fluorescent light thing is a huge thing. The expectation that somebody is going to sit still in a 45-minute class period and focus the entire time, like that's an unreasonable expectation that doesn't have to be that way. There are all of these different ways that we can um move through spaces of learning that actually nourish people's like innate ability to be creative and like think, expansively about stuff. And it's just, yeah, it's just I think all of the little things like the lighting and like the bells and like all and the food thing and the trays, it's like, yeah, it's just all of this stuff that people don't realize what a toll it takes. And it almost takes someone like, an elementary school student to like name it like that, to bring it into focus, because it's like, yeah, that student actually is like speaking truth that adults have just like taken for granted or forgotten. And I think sometimes also we're conditioned out of having language to describe our own experience.
Yeah, for sure. And what's my mom told me, who also works in childcare, she told me that she was like on Instagram one day and she saw this video of a kid and just talking about the Bad Bunny Super Bowl
Uh-huh.
performance, and she said, my mom was like, the girl said like, can you put the to her mom, she's like, can you put the video back on? Bad Bunny is happiness. Like describing him and his performance and his presence as happiness. And something was so profound. As someone who like loves words, I was like, what?
That's
Like
poetry.
it's literally poetry.
Yeah.
And like part of it is astounding because she's a child, but
Hmm.
also like just as a human to be able to describe things in such like a simple way, but such
Hmm.
like a big way,
Hmm.
because kids have a way of saying things in, in a way that like anyone can understand except for the ones who try very hard not to, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
They're to be able to be like, oh, the kids, right, the kids office, I don't understand things. It's like you not understanding humans in
Yeah,
ways. Like
yeah.
you're
No, they
actively
actually
turning off.
understand more than we do a lot
And
of the
it's like
time.
we are bottling up so much, like pressing so much down that the kids haven't been conditioned to do.
Yeah, yeah,
And when I'm seeing like the conditioning early on, like it's just hard to watch little boys, especially. I feel like I always have like a tenderness for them because I've been
yeah,
around adult men and I know they're fucking crazy.
yeah,
So when I see them like hug each other or like I see them kind of just sit with each other and like have this softness with each other,
yeah,
it's like devastating seeing how men don't want to do that. And
yeah,
like
yeah,
and they'll just, yeah, I'll just see like even parents, like, like they'll do things that I'm like, that this is like taking something from him. And it's like, I don't have the place to say that when I'm
yeah,
at work because that's inappropriate, but also like I still have those feelings. And it's like, I have to work with your kid every day in a way that like, it's like, I feel like me and you especially have like a really, um, interesting role in a child's life because my thing is about to expire the video. So we're gonna take a little break
okay.
in a little bit as like
Okay.
so I can finish it. But anyway, the juncture that you have with these kids is like about just about safety, like almost completely about
Mm,
honesty and safety, and that's something that people constantly like don't want to have, won't don't want kids to have.
yeah,
And the fact that you're hearing poetry, um from a kid that doesn't share any of their poetry, like
yeah,
that's such a big thing, you know? So
yeah.
I'm sure like being able to just like hear what a kid has to think is like so much of a blessing sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, this work has changed me profoundly. And yeah, I mean, the students' poetry, it's like such a huge privilege to be trusted enough to, to hear that expression and just be blown away by the emotional intelligence and like the ability to describe her own experience. And like, one of the poems she wrote was about like the somatic feeling of having a panic attack. And I was like, this is exactly what a panic attack feels like. Like it was unbelievable to me how she was like so clearly able to describe the sensation of what that feels like and like what that means to her and what it like, the impact that it has on her day and her mind. And I was just like, this is actually like even more. She's like doing more on her own than like I could even do with her in a session. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that also speaks to the power of like, creativity and art in processing and practicing, this thing that I think really does need to be a lifelong practice of finding language for our experience. I think it's really, really important because it helps us it helps us believe what's happening to us, I think.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. Like, there's a level of disbelief, I think, that I have on the daily because I'm like, how is this happening? Like
Right.
being able to sit back where it's like, oh, it's a snowstorm one day and then it's 7 degrees the next,
Right.
like there's certain like things that are so devastating that I don't feel like I am equipped with understanding as someone who's dedicated so much time um with art and like therapy and just like regular practice to understand myself. I still feel like it's a type of sadness or like defeat feelings
Mhm.
like that I just don't know how to name, but I'm like kids have a way of like showing us that it's like a really natural way of thinking. You're just
Yes.
like, yeah, panic attacks are really like they're really explicit in a lot of ways. You're like, okay, my heart's beating really fast, my head hurts, my ears are ringing. Like there's such like blatant ways that your body is telling you that things are wrong
Yeah.
that I feel like for some reason a lot of us are like, okay, I'm not gonna think about that then. Like that was
Yeah.
weird or whatever, but I'm gonna move on with the rest of my
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
So,
Um, I have much to say, but should we take the break now, or do you
yeah,
want
let's
to
take the
talk
break
about?
and
Okay.
we'll get into some questions. I was like, talking about kids. I just
I
every time.
know. I know. I feel like you and I could talk about kids for hours, but there's so much to say. I mean, it's all there. I don't know. I think about it so much and like it really is like transformative work and um it's kind of like the key to everything. And yeah, it just really, I think, just to kind of put a point on like all of the things that we've said, it's just like now I forgot what I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? Um, I forgot. Maybe it's time to take a break. Maybe I'll remember it when we come back.
Yeah, let's take some processing time.
Okay.
And then this would be the last part of it, or last session.
Okay, great.
Okay, how should we keep going? Okay, we were talking about all of the ways that your workplace has been enthralling and crippling and just life-changing.
Hmm.
So I wanted to ask, since there are issues with how the space exists, that what are problems, what do you think is wrong about how we're interacting with each other on the daily? I was thinking in terms of like friends, family, on social media, work coworkers, even your students. What are the everyday problems you're seeing? Like this is just not right. How do we get out of this?
Hmm. Okay. This is a great, I love this question because I think that, my whole sort of thesis in this life and like why I'm in social work school is as an extension of my liberation practice. And the reason it's an extension of my liberation practice is that I think that our movement work and our liberation struggle period like needs to begin in healing and repairing the way that we relate to each other because I think constantly about the ways in which the ideology of capitalism has prevented us, by design, has prevented us from being able to connect with each other, and has kind of eroded our social relationships, our relationships to ourselves, our relationships to, each other, our community, and also our relationships to our environment. And I think that, yeah, I think that the practice of healing those social relationships is like where our movement work needs to begin. And I think we have to kind of think reciprocally about that, right? So that like, the relational work that we're doing is in service of liberation. And also the liberation work that we do is fueled by how we treat each other in these micro, person to person moments. And we kind of can't do the larger work without the smaller work and vice versa. So that is sort of always my framing, as I like move through the work that I do. Um, but I think, socially in my own life, also I have experienced like, really painful rupture in my organizing work, that was relational, actually at its core. And I think it was kind of because of, the same things, which is that like it's really hard for us like not to think about like not to think of like our relationships to people in terms of like power over. And I think we have to move towards like thinking about power with and like how do we accompany each other, and how do we uh I guess honor each other in a way that isn't about like, who is the most right or like who needs to like take control of the dynamic. And I think that that was kind of what was underlying a lot of the like relational issues that caused like the org that I was in to kind of implode. Um I think in terms of like my friendships, I'm so grateful for my friendships. I feel like, you know, that is the type of love that like makes my life possible and like makes all this really hard work, uh, you know, I don't want to say meaningful because I find like meaning in a lot of different places, but like it makes it possible for me to like show up. Like I was with my friends last night and I was like laughing so hard I was crying, and it was like the first time I had like laughed that hard in maybe like a month or two, and I was like, this is the stuff of life. Like this is like somatically like what nourishes me enough to like show up for the really, really hard moments of like stress and conflict. Um, and I don't know if this answers your question, but I think something else I've really been thinking about and struggling with in terms of like thinking through like how to support my students is like what meaningful navigation of conflict would actually look like for them. And for me, I think too, because often in the school setting that I'm in, students are sort of like the way that they have learned that it to deal with conflict is through fighting physically. And there are a lot of really good reasons that they have learned that. Like that actually can be a very effective strategy for asserting your dignity, asserting your agency in a situation. It can be it has been an incredibly effective survival tactic for a lot of, the folks that I work with. And so it makes sense that that is like the way that students seek to resolve like peer-to-peer conflict a lot of time. And it also is like something that in within the school context will like get you suspended and, has the potential to, um, involve police presence, which is always terrifying, and something that I'm desperate to avoid. Um, and so I'm kind of trying, something that I come up against a lot in like working with the students is like, what would it mean to like what would it mean to actually move through conflict in a way that like honored students' desire for like agency and dignity and change, but that wasn't as unsatisfying as like what admin or like my supervisor tells me to tell them, which is, oh, you just need to walk away. Like if someone's bothering you, if someone's bullying you, if someone's antagonizing you, oh, just walk away. And I'm like, that is not a helpful answer. First of all, they're that means nothing to them. They're like, that's bullshit. Secondly, like I just know from my somatic training that anger and frustration and rage and grief also are emotions that require movement. They need somewhere to go. They're actually the body's demand for something to happen. So to just walk away is actually teaching students to suppress and deny what they're feeling, which
And be
is not
submissive.
what
And be submissive.
and be submissive, right? So it's fucked up. It's fucked up. And it's also, especially for Black and brown students, like this idea that you need to be submissive and suppress what you're feeling in order to survive a structurally racist world um is fundamentally dehumanizing. And I just can't like it actually fills me with rage. And so I am like, and also like if when I talk to my students, they're like, that's bullshit. Like if you teach someone by walking away that they can continue to treat you badly, like they're going to. Like if I don't fight people, they're going to think I'm weak and then I'm going to be bullied more. And I'm like, yeah, that is reasonable. So I think what I'm like working through right now is like, what does a meaningful alternative look like that both like evades, punitive disciplinary action and like avoids like, potentially violent encounters with police, but that also like honors students, desire for agency and change in terms of like how we move through conflict with our peers. And I don't know what that sort of third way is. And I don't know that the students know either because, we've talked about it a lot and there's like and they've like said to me like there actually like, is no other option. Like you either fight or you suppress and you move on and you kind of squash it somehow. Um, I don't know if that really like answered your question, but
No, I think it does. It made me think about like because I have worked primarily with black kids, like maybe I've had a couple white students, but majority black kids are people of color.
yeah.
And that's like such a hard part of it is teaching them defense and like uh what's the word? Like de-escalation tactics.
Yeah.
Because like even what you said about like how that teaches people to be like walking away teaches people a way to depress or repress. I feel
Yeah.
that in myself. Like sometimes I feel like I have to like kind of calm myself down. Usually the way I can do that is by walking away. But I think also being able to approach things in a way that you can like name your emotions
Mm.
or even like I think walking away is always an option, but I
Yeah.
think also like being able to be like hey, no, like I'm sorry, but that's not what's going to happen. And like I have to learn that as an adult, but I was not like that wasn't acceptable because of what I was being taught as a kid. Like my at home, my parents were like, don't ever start a fight, but if someone starts a fight with you, you have to finish it. You know what I'm saying? Like you're
Hmm.
not supposed to just
Hmm.
let people walk over you because
Right.
again, you don't want to seem weak, and that's just like a human natural survival thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it is kind of frustrating being like, you don't have to fight, like telling the kids, like, you don't have to fight everyone. That's not how you always have to resolve
Yeah.
things. Like, chill
Yeah.
out. Like,
Yeah.
because then also people are going to think that they can get under your skin super easily. You know,
Right.
you don't want
Exactly.
to teach
Yeah.
a kid that like they can embarrass themselves sometimes, or people can like intentionally toy with them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it is kind of hard because we are not taught as like Americans how to be like, I'm refusing you being able to talk to me like that. Like I've had to do that
Right.
with adults at my job, and be like,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not a child. You cannot talk to me like that because there's been so many
Yeah.
times where I feel like I am belittled at work, but I'm like, I'm not hearing that anymore. I'm sorry, but you can't fire me because I'm telling you no. That's just kind of the way
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
Maybe the workplace is going to be more hostile because you're going to make it hostile,
Right.
but that's about it.
But
But,
also like, yeah, and also I think, I'm like, what is hostility? Like, it's hostile because you asserted your boundaries. Like, okay. Like I think especially like white supremacy culture like encourages us to confuse like comfortability with unsafety. And so, what someone is calling hostility, I'm actually hearing as like, this made you uncomfortable because I asserted myself in a way that you didn't expect. And now you don't know how to process that because you're so used to just walking all over people of color.
yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Um, but yeah, no, I think what you're saying is so true in terms of like, yeah, I think there is definitely something to be said about like picking your battles. And I think something that I, talk with my students about also is like, yes, sometimes the best answer is to walk away, but then when you walk away, where do you go? Like, what do you
Mm,
do? Are you expected to just continue on with your day as if nothing happened? Are you coming to me and venting to me about and screaming and crying with me about what happened? Like, are you like how are you letting the emotion that is coming up for you actually move through you? So that you don't feel like you are just made to suppress your rage and basically just eat the like feeling of humiliation or powerlessness that comes up for you when you're challenged by conflict. Because a lot of the reasons why this stuff is so triggering for students is because it echoes, I think, feelings of being disrespected that they encounter constantly in life. And like I was looking through, I have like a technically like a caseload of students and they all have sort of intake forms that they have to fill out when they get admitted to school. And so I was looking through the forms just to get like some background on everyone. And one of the questions that the intake form asks is like, when are you most likely to be triggered? Or move to anger. And almost all of the students said, when I'm disrespected.
I
And
feel the same exact way,
yeah, well, who doesn't? Who
right?
doesn't? I mean, that is like such a human thing. And also, it really made me think about like, well, fucking yeah, of course, like this world is fundamentally disrespectful, especially to Black people and people of color. So, like, you have a lived experience of being disrespected constantly in like all of these tiny ways that we were talking about, like every day, all the time. Of course, this is going to be triggering for you and is going to make you feel powerless when you can't respond. And, like, of course, you know, physically fighting someone feels somatically like a good way to assert like a helpful way to assert your agency. So I think, you know, also in terms of like picking your battles, there's something that I'm working with students on of like what was I going to say? How to say this? Like um shit, I lost it. Hold on. Oh, it flew away. Um wow, I totally lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
We can move on. Maybe it'll come back to me. There's
Okay.
something about like somatically like oh, I know. Okay. The concept of like a regulated nervous system is hard for me because I think even in somatics like education spaces, we're taught that that means one thing and it means that you're calm and grounded and your breathing is normal and deep, right? But I think actually what is a more reasonable understanding of like what an attune like also I don't like the term regulation because I think it has linguistic connotations with carcerality and control that I don't like. I think it's another way of teaching people how to just walk away and stay calm when actually maybe sometimes the situation requires that we are activated and it's a reasonable response to what the conditions that we're living in. Um, and so I think maybe in terms of thinking about like an attuned nervous system is more like helpful language for me. And like I think something that I'm kind of working with my students on is like, when it's like, okay, if you're feeling activated by, an encounter, what part of this is past experience that's making this activating for you? What is, a reasonable response to what is happening in the moment? And how do we identify that and sort of assess like what the right response is, like based on all of that. And that is really hard to do when you are activated because the rational part of your brain actually goes offline when you're in fight or flight. So, I'm working somatically with students in terms of like finding tools to like navigate those like really stressful moments when your nervous system is under stress, like how do you respond? But I think, that's part of the equation too of like this feeling of like just walk away and like calm yourself down. And it's like actually like teaching students that they should calm themselves down in situations when actually it's right for them to be as upset as they are is like another way of just like of conditioning us to like deny what's happening. And I think it has, it's related to how we're taught to like just survive under dehumanizing, conditions of white supremacist capitalism and like how we keep going on when the world is fucking on fire, you know?
Yeah. I there's so many things to say that, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
I've asked to get three questions, and I think
Sorry, I went on a rant.
no, I love it. I'm like, I need to pick your brain more after this, just
Okay.
because I feel like we are like hitting the same like walls. It feels like in the same like kids have a way of pressing the same buttons, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
like triggering, but sometimes. But I do want to ask another question.
Hmm.
Um, I we talked about what we think is wrong in terms of interactions externally. But I'm curious to hear what you think is a personal failing of yours or something that like is a setback for what you want resistance to look like or what a better world to look like. Because I know like one of my issues I say in like every single time I talk about this question is that like I have bad social anxiety and
Hmm.
that sometimes it freaks me out to talk to people and I'm not the most extroverted. I like have spent my entire life kind of like taking myself out of my shyness. But I'm
Hmm.
curious to see like what is your thoughts about what's something that's holding you back?
Mm. Let me take a minute to sit with this question because I think it's a really good one and I want to answer like really honestly. Um, you know, I think that I'm realizing that like a lot of my answers are about the work I'm doing with students, which is makes sense because it is like the form that my liberation work is taking right now in my life. So but I just want to say, yeah, so that's just like context I want to give for like why my answers are kind of all revolving around, these relationships that I'm building. And I think that learning how to be in relationships or in relationship in this context is teaching me so much about um how to show up and do this work. And I think something that I constantly struggle with, well, first of all, I share the social anxiety piece that you talked about, and it's rough. It's really rough. And I feel like the work that I'm doing now has taught me how to I'm practicing getting better with enduring discomfort around that anxiety. Um, and I think that something that has been really difficult for me and that I continue to struggle with is honestly my perfectionism around showing up perfectly. Because I think, I mean, I say this all the time, but I feel like I experience ego death every single time I walk in the school building. And like the work is just so humbling because students, and again, this is another like amazing thing about working with kids is that like they see you and they have like their bullshit detector is incredible and they can tell if you are not showing up in your authenticity. Um, and so they will kind of like flay you alive in that way. Like there isn't really a place to hide. And also, if you give an answer that's kind of phony, they know. And they're like, yeah, that's kind of bullshit. Like, okay, whatever. Like, and also it affects the trust level that you're able to cultivate. And then it affects the work. Because students don't talk, like, kids don't talk to people that they don't trust. They don't confide in people that they don't trust. Which is good. Like that is a very good self-preservation strategy. Um, but I think that my perfectionism has really been like an impediment or like something that I struggle with like every day that I'm there because I constantly feel like I'm failing. I constantly feel like I'm not doing the work well enough. I feel like I should have shown up better. I should have known to say something that I didn't say. I should have known what type of intervention was the best one. And it's the work like is actually a practice of trying and failing over and over and over again. And like that's how you get better at being
Mhm.
in relationship and like being a therapist. Um, and that's been like so hard for me because I am a perfectionist and I want to do the work well. Like I want to be good at what I do and I want to like make a positive impact. But I've really had to reckon with like how much that is about me and my ego. And that actually, I think that's about serving the people that I'm working with, but actually it's more about me and my conception of myself and like feeling good about myself than it is about simply being present and simply accompanying people on the journey that they're on. And I've really had to check like my desires for what someone else's journey is, or like my understanding of like what success would look like, or growth, let's say, would look like in terms of like a therapeutic relationship with a person. Um, and really like get self-critical about like how much of that is about you and about feeling good about what you're doing and how much of that is actually about what this person needs and how much of it is actually about what this person is telling you that they need.
Yeah. Wow. I have a very like similar feeling about my perfectionism. I think it's just like a general artist thing
Hmm.
that it's like we're taught that the only reason why we should put things out is so that it can be perfect and valuable and commodified. Um, yeah, what you said was so personal, so thank you for saying that. Yeah, I feel like I relate
Yeah.
a lot. I feel like that leads directly into my last three questions. I usually pair them together.
Hmm.
The first question is, and this can be like maybe a sentence or what, however long you want to go into it. But the first question is, what is something you want to tell your future self?
Oof. Ah. Um, it was worth it.
Mm,
It was worth it.
that's a good one. I feel like I know exactly what you mean. I feel like I have the same. I was just telling my brother the other day, I was like, I don't have any regrets. I'm not a regretful person, even though that's kind of a lie because I regret things like all the time. But
Yeah, same.
But I
constantly.
I know that at the end of the day, yeah, that it was all worth learning. It's my favorite thing to do is learn.
Hmm.
Um, Second thing is what do you want to tell your past self?
Kind of the same thing. It was worth it.
Mm.
I feel like that goes both directions.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like it goes both directions. I think, yeah, and also I think I want to tell my past self to kind of have, I think this is a classic thing, but have, have as much compassion for myself as I try to cultivate for others.
Yeah. I think that's a very typical thing to say for care workers for
Yeah.
sure, or just
Yeah.
people in general. But I do feel like there's a
Yeah.
lot that I've been hearing about caretaking and how like that can be transformative work, but it can, yeah, it can teach you so much about yourself in a way that you're
It
like,
does. Yeah.
it's kind of, it's hitting right here.
Yeah, I mean it's really makes you have to reckon with yourself. I have one more thing to say actually going back to what we said about like the perfectionism thing because I think it's
Hmm.
really important because I think the reason why it's such an impediment to like my liberation work and liberation work in general is because I mean, perfectionism is a product of white supremacy culture, ultimately. And also, I think that it is a kind of rubric that often infects our ability to imagine a liberation. And it affects how we conceptualize previous revolutionary struggle. And we think that if something wasn't 100% effective, then it should never be tried again. I feel like that is
Mm.
like the way we talk about like past revolutions. Like, oh yeah, well, they overthrew the government, but like then look what happened. It all went to shit.
Yeah. Look
Like,
at Russia. Like,
right. And it's like, yeah, sure, it did all go to shit. Like, let's talk about how. Let's talk
yeah.
about what we would do differently. And I think, something that is really important in terms of like, thinking through like liberatory imagining is that this work is iterative. It is about trying and failing and then trying again and picking it up and trying again. And that is actually anti-perfectionist at its core. And so I think that's like another way in which I'm finding this like very sort of person to person like micro work is actually mirroring this capacity that I have to cultivate when I'm thinking about, like what is possible on a larger scale.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna think about that after. Because I need my ass to like be like, oh, it doesn't have to be perfect, just do something, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, just do something. And it won't be also. Like it won't
Yeah,
be.
it like, literally will never be. That's not the
Yeah.
purpose of doing anything is for it to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Final question is what is something you think you need to hear right now?
Mm. I think it would really help me. Something I've really struggled with in being in social work school is like finding models for people who are doing liberation work in this like relational way. And I know they're out there and I'm just like having trouble finding them right now. And so I feel like I like really need an elder to be like, it's possible to do this work. And like, here's how I did it. Like this is a model for how to do this. Like it's possible. And also like the work that you're doing is like you are on the path. I feel like that type of encouragement would like really help me right now.
Yeah. I feel similarly. I feel like I was just thinking the other day about like elders and how like as a black person, as a queer person, that kind of disappears. And it's like I really feel like I'm living a life that has never been lived before, even though I know like, I'm uniquely me, but at the same time,
Yeah.
like there have been so many like walks of life that have mirrored mine in
Yeah.
just like a way that is about just how like my body presents in a world that doesn't want my body to exist,
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
way that I can go to stories and write in a way to like talk about my emotions. But when I look at my favorite writers, my favorite Black authors, they've all died in ways that have not been like
Yeah.
this. It's rare where it's like just natural causes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it's really hard. And as a queer person, I was thinking because I read this book about the crack epidemic a couple months ago, and I was thinking about I want to read something similar about the AIDS epidemic because those things were happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I feel like it is definitely something that I'm like, I feel like I'm missing. There's gaps in between a narrative that I have to like fill in my own.
Hmm.
So yeah, I feel like that's why I wanted to ask like questions about present, past, and future because we are living, people say unprecedented times, but we have been living in the same bullshit forever.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's curious. It's been curious to me to see how people are dealing with that. So yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for telling me that. Thank you for, yeah, I feel like yours were super like, this is what I want to say. And then I was like, this is exactly how I'm feeling. So thank you for that.
I'm glad that it resonated. Yeah. Yeah, that God, yeah, we need like intergenerational relationships so desperately. And it's so sad the way that we have been stripped like that because of like systemic like as Ruth Wilson Gilmore would say like organized abandonment. And I think
Hmm.
like the war on drugs and the AIDS epidemic are two examples of that kind of organized abandonment that really defrauded us out of like a generation of elders. It's
Yeah.
devastating.
Yeah. I guess we're the ones who have to hold it down now,
We are, and they're also out there, like survivors exist, and
for sure.
people wrote their testimony, and I think it's up to us to like weave those into the work that we're doing now for sure. So,
Well, I want to commend you for the work you're doing now. Those kids are so blessed to have you.
oh,
They
thank
really
you.
are.
Say
The way
that,
I hear you
I
talk
don't
about
know.
them,
I
I
like woke up
just
this morning and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing there. I'm not making an impact. Nothing I do is working. But thank you for saying that.
okay, Elspeth, that was beautiful. I really liked this interview. Was there any last lingering thoughts you wanted to say? Because usually the way I end it is by saying, what is something that you want to tell someone who's watching this and wants to hear some type of affirmations or whatnot, as the person who has to kind of live on and tell the stories?
Mm. Um, hmm. That's a hard question. I feel like a lot of pressure around answering that
It's
question.
okay, you don't have to,
Um,
but
I feel like yeah, to tell someone that is watching, I feel like I hope that like I hope that watching these is like tends your fire and like nourishes your capacity to like show up in the world and do this work. And I think, it always like really helps me to hear how other people are showing up. And it helps me to like see models of how to be. And so if these conversations can provide a kind of mirror or can provide a kind of like um, a feeling of not being so alone, um, then that's kind of everything. And I hope that that like nourishes your ability to show up because we need you.
yes, very much so. I agree. Okay, thank you, Elspeth. I really appreciate this was really good. I really like this one.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you for
Of
these
course.
questions.
Okay, I'm gonna end this so we can do like a little debrief
Okay,
for a
perfect.
little bit. But is there anything you want to plug for anything, or I can link your Instagram or something, website?
No.
Okay. Period. Okay. I'm gonna close this. How do I?